Welcome back, and it's now a bit of a clash of not only two teams, but also two fans. You know, me and Middlecott, we're going head to head on this one. I don't know why I picked V3 as my team, but they are my team, and I will support with them through thick and thin. You know, and today I believe it's coming on. You know, and I'm not just saying that because of English, and that's like our thing, but it is coming on. You know, we've had a lot of losses from V3 now. I think it's 23 in a row, and I said 777. That should have been their lucky number. This would be 888. Obviously, 8, a very lucky number in some cultures.
Yeah.
This is V3's day. I'm telling you. V3 are going to pick up the win against CGA here. We all know CGA's coin flip. There is potential for it. But on a serious note, CGA have been looking pretty good. They beat Burning Court in a very, very strong fashion. They were looking decent against Sengoku, but obviously Sengoku just very, very strong. And Middlecott, are you feeling confident about CGA right now? Do you feel like they've kind of lost a little bit of the coin flip? Or are they still a little bit hard to watch?
I mean, to a certain extent, I think some of the coin flipping is gone. Particularly Kassin's invading seems to be a lot more considered. He's not doing it blindly without any support from his team. Nemra is playing with a lot more confidence on these engaged supports, which is always great to see. And hybrid is still hybrid. So I think that there's a strong core that this team can play around. There are still questions about Kaito in the mid lane champion pool specifically. But apart from that, yeah, I think you can be very, very happy if you're a CGA fan with this start.
Yeah, V3, a tough loss against Axis. They almost picked up their win there. It was almost their first one, but it was not to be. And obviously a controversial loss against DFM. Most expected that to go the other way. But but today, as we said, V3 could make it happen. But if they are going to make it happen, recollect, how do you think it's going to work?
Well, in the games they have had, their best performing member, in my opinion, was Washide in that top lane. Did look great in game number 1, which I want to delete from my memory as soon as I possibly can. But the Camille looked really strong. I think the split pushing is definitely a potential option to exploit. The issue is that as a team, it feels like they're not sure what to do from there when they're in a winning position. They get to about 20 minutes, and then it's like, solo queue, help me, and no one knows what to do. So it's a little bit of a tough one, but if we are going to see some sort of positivity, it's going to come through that top side, so I want to see some resources invested.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, but on the flip side, Nap is real good. Day 1 was my MVP across the day, and I thought that they put on a really good performance. You know, I think the Nap really is a dangerous one to watch in Washidai, although, yes, the saving grace of V3, or at least considered to be in the last split, I don't know if they're going to have the power needed. Now, if we do look at the bot lane as well, obviously that is CGA's powerhouse, you know, the hybrid, Nemo, Duo, and Nemo, playing a lot better this split as well. Is there some level for Dress Code and Heto to come back into this one? Do you think that there's any way that they pick up the win here, Middlecott?
I think if they do pick up the win, I think bot lane is unlikely to be the source of it, because I think that hybrid and Nema are one of the strongest aspects of CGA, and for V3 dress code, maybe a little bit less Hetel, definitely one of the weaker sides. It's always a thing with AD carry. If you get a couple kills, if you get ahead of the curve, maybe there's something there, but I think CGA have got this one on lock.
Yeah, and Kassin Kaito, obviously a really strong duo as well. V3, the thing is, I don't think we can fully cut them out, you know? You never know in a game of League of Legends, things can go either way, but it does feel like CGA are having a little bit of this advantage, and to be fair, this could be the day for it, you know? I feel like we've had a lot of interesting games, some upsets. Recollect, what would you say is the potential chance for V3 to win?
Well, I'm pretty sure, you see, using my colossal cranium, my incredible intellect, in fact, I can confirm that it's actually 100% win here for V3, because it is the third game for them. And if you didn't know, their name is V3, so the third game must be a victory.
Victory on 3,
exactly. Either that, or it's going to be really rough for the rest of the season. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I believe.
Yeah, and they're bringing up key players right now on the mainstream. I will say Hybrid Hotel obviously is two people that we have to talk about. It's definitely going to be a lot on this bot lane. I'm expecting a lot of action there. But I am also questioning, do they play for that top side because it has been so strong? I think there's a lot of questions going into this. I do think that draft is also going to be a big factor because I think that generally for most teams, and maybe you guys disagree on this one, maybe this is just a hot take from me, I feel like the LJL has kind of stayed a little bit in the past with the draft.
Yeah.
I think today they've moved a little bit more forwards, but I still think that there could be some updating from some of these teams.
I mean, potentially. I've always been a big advocate of comfort over basically anything. If you're comfortable on a champion and it's still strong, it can work. But yeah, I want to see a few of these meta picks come into the forefront as well.
Well, we aren't going to have to wait very long. Production has told me the draft is starting, so let's get into it. The final game of the day, Middle Court Recollect, take us through to CGA V3.
Hey, this one should be a lot of fun. CGA already targeting around Yu-Gi-Oh in that mid lane with that Galio and Corki taken off the board. V3 responding with the pretty stock standard red side bans of the Lucian and the Zeri at this point. Very strong in the meta, but also deadly in the hands of Hybrid.
And I was going to say as well, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Kaito is a really interesting mid matchup here. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Could potentially have Kaito's number, especially if that Zoe is not let through this pick ban. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that one taken off the board here. Not a big meta ban, but definitely something that Kaito has shown a lot of familiarity with, landing some beautiful bubbles, I believe, in the first game.
Oh yeah, like the angles that he was throwing those out from were absolutely crazy. But then on the Ari, up against Burning Core, definitely not as confident in that matchup. Trundle gonna be the takeaway here. Kassin has played a game of that, looked all right on it, but not one of these real top tiers in the jungle. Does free up the Wukong. I imagine Viego's going to be the response.
Yeah, it is kind of our traditional, right? We see Viego, we see Wukong, nothing too crazy there. But it's interesting now, giving that Wukong over does signify the potential of the Sejuani moving towards the top side. But when I think of Nap, I don't immediately associate with Sejuani as my first port of call. It is an option, obviously, but I think that plays into V3's hands a little bit if you do decide to go down that route, obviously, with the enjoyment of Washidai on those carry-based top laners. So it's now a bit of an awkward spot here for CJ moving through the draft. To me, the next best pick, obviously, that Ezreal is still open, especially if you are wanting to deny the potential of that Zoe Ezreal core that CGA can play, which could be so dangerous.
Yeah, a lot of long range and a lot of damage, which are two things that Viego really doesn't like. Actually, the Ornn blind locked in here. This is a little bit different from V3, maybe a curveball that CGA weren't particularly expecting.
Yeah, only problem with that idea is the fact that we have already seen Nat play both the Olaf and the Lilia. Specifically, the Lilia, I feel like, has a decent matchup into Ornn. I wouldn't be too unhappy to play that one myself. So I don't think it's one of those where it's like, don't worry, guys, we've got this. This is brilliant. But they might have managed to hit the opposition with a confused ray because now the Ahri is randomly being locked in, and that didn't look too great last time around.
Yeah, I mean, it does pair up quite nicely with the Wukong in terms of that mid jungle duo. But I am surprised that CJ haven't opted to pick up some components of their bot lane here. Obviously, V3 not locking in any of themselves, so I think CJ maybe want a bit more of a favorable matchup, saving those picks for 4 and 5, and instead opting in for the Olaf once again for Nap.
Yeah, so the Olaf kind of makes a lot of sense into this Ornn matchup. You just bully him out of the lane. You don't really ever have any risk of dying because obviously if you get low, you're going to hit even harder and you have the ulti to immune the opposition's ultimate. So you're never really going to get CC'd either. One of the best picks in that regard. However, you have drafted a very low-range composition and in my word, Mr. Birdie Boy is back.
Yeah, the Swain just such a powerful tool for standing in the middle of a team fight and not dying, which is pretty darn useful, if I do say so myself. But something, again, that CJ may be not expecting. I like that V3 are being a bit more experimental with their draft here. I think the bot lane is going to be key, though. If Dresscode and Hatel aren't on a matchup that they are comfortable on, nasty things could happen.
I'm interested to see as well what type of Swain build this will be, because we have seen some variation between the Liandry's or even the Imperial Mandate Rylai's type build. So there are options available here to run down if you want to do so. But to me, looking down the list of champions currently picked in, to me, you've got to worry about escaping and mobility, and Ezreal is just jumping out at me. That is a massive one that could come through. You've still got things like the Jinx that we can come through, still things like the Aphelios, the Thresh, as support options. There is so much available here to go down, and I think both these teams, they've got to think really carefully about what can help incentivize and benefit their own compositions.
And I like this Kalista ban coming through from V3 because while she's a champion that we haven't been seeing too much in the LJL, does fit very much into the way that Hybrid likes to play out these lanes. He's very, very aggressive. I think one of the few AD carries in the LJL that you can genuinely call aggressive, not just in the context of the region, but in the context of wider AD carry play. That Xayah taken off the table, I love this. One of the safest AD carries, Dress Code, isn't going to have those safety tools available to himself in the bot lane.
Yeah, there's a lot of options still on the table, though. As I stated, in fact, Jhin is something that is still left open somehow through all of this, and it hasn't risen to priority here, but it is a fantastic champion in the current meta that people have just been absolutely skipping on, but instead it will be that Ezreal that's tried and true, very commonly locked in over in the East, so I'm not too surprised to see that one taken off the table. I think Dress Code, I believe, did pilot that one once already.
Yeah, and the normal lock-in here for Hybrid would be something like the Kai'Sa, but you're playing against the Swain, you're playing against the Ornn. These are champions that Kai'Sa really doesn't interact with fairly well. Whilst the 1v1 onto the Ezreal is great, you end up on the back line facing a load of champions that you can't kill. Is still going to throw down the gauntlet. We are still getting the Void Lady on the Rift. This is a big call, IMO.
Yeah, honestly, if I was going to go down this route, you could even have made an argument for things like the Misfortune over this Kai'Sa. Just played it slow and enable yourself for those ultis, especially if you're going to lock in Leona anyway, would make a lot of sense. But it now means that you are essentially giving V3 exactly what their composition wants. You're giving them low range, you're giving them things that are requiring to get up in a Swain's face. Same with an Ornn, same with Ezreal, who no one can really touch in this composition. There is a couple of things that just would win. The first champion in my mind is Zilean. If Zilean were to be locked in here, V3, I'm pretty sure, is so far ahead. Tahm Kench works, but it's not quite as efficient.
You don't revive people with full HP on Tahm Kench, but you still provide a lot of that safety. And when you've got champions that want to dive in, like the Olaf, like the Wukong, like the Kai'Sa, just being able to nope that initial burst, it is so useful for buying more time in these fights. I feel like that's the mantra that V3 have adopted with this composition.
Yeah, the only issue with this Tahm Kench pick that makes it a little bit worse as well is the fact that you're going to have to be so close to all of your carries, and you can't really split up, which potentially creates awkward scenarios against Leona's Solar Flare. Such a massive AoE that she can catch the slow on Tahm Kench, maybe she can then engage onto him, because naturally he isn't super tanky when he's not running things like the Fasting Senna as a side product to give you that bit of extra gold influx to give you the items that you need, So you are a much squishier support. You don't really provide the best engage yourself. It becomes a bit of a dead pick depending on the scenario, but still going to have value if played optimally.
Yeah. But then on the side of CGA, this needs to get going as soon as possible, IMO, because you've got some decent mid-game champions there. Basically in all of your picks, but if you're getting into these later stages of the game, it's going to be so difficult for you to actually kill this Swain, kill this Ornn, kill anyone on V3, and as those fights go extended, your damage goes down, and the enemy health bars, they just keep going up.
Yeah, the draft is looking like a bit of a PayPal gap at this point. So V3 in a good spot for this one.
Okay,
I'll make sure to sort that one out later on today. Don't you worry, friends. Thank you, CGA. No, but in all seriousness, it's one of those where it definitely looks, in theory, like V3 has some advantages, but there is a lot of issues too. On that top side, that Olaf could run rampant in those early stages. And if an Olaf gets going, we've seen what he can do. That 1v3 scenario is on the table, and my word, he can dominate. And bearing in mind that, looking down the list, there is a lot of early playmaking potential here for the blue side of the Rift, and I wouldn't be too surprised to see CGA just absolutely walk through the early game.
The other thing as well, it's why should I on Ornn? We talk about this guy as being the main guy for V3, the big carry that they can have as much as you can carry on a team that has been in this slump for so long. So I'm surprised to see him on this pick, and there's a lot of emphasis on Unica, Eugeo, and Dress Code to step up. We are now on to the rift for our final game of the day. CGA currently sat 1-on-1 V3, looking to pick up their first win of the entire year.
I'm just thinking, how upset would you be if this is the game you win as Washidai? Like, last split, you're playing Nah, you're playing Gwen, Camille, Graves, top, Kennen. This split, Camille, Nah, and then it's like, yeah, we won the Ornn game.
Yeah,
like,
we won the own game, yeah.
Like, me top lane, me tank, me bonk hammer, give upgrade.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Because you're never playing Camille again at that point.
Oh, yeah, no, my man's on Scion Ornn duty for the rest of the split.
Hell yeah. Both junglers starting in their top quadrants, going to be pathing towards the bottom side of the map. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. If you're Kassin, you've got some lockdown in those early stages and a lot of capitalization from Hybrid on this Kai'Sa.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we mentioned how important that Hybrid's Kai'Sa can be, that potential to just burst out the opposition, and running this teleport, looking for a bit more of a potential early base, looking towards something maybe like the Serrated Dirk. You go towards that 1100 gold buy, you come back, maybe you get gold advantage because also Ezreal's going to have to take that early base for Sheen. So if you can apply enough pressure, you can maybe get yourself a couple CS advantage off of that alone and start to win the lane in isolation, bearing in mind how defensive a Tahm Kench can be, especially once he gets access to that level 6.
I think that's something pretty key that you've touched on. We've talked about how good this composition is for V3. The caveat is, though, these players, they haven't really been able to step up and match a lot of the other players in the LJL. They look great in Academy. I mean, yourself and myself casted them a bunch, and they looked absolutely dominant there. But ever since they've joined the LJL, ever since Marble left this roster, it's not quite been the same for them.
Yeah, and crucially, this composition as well for these players is that they don't get really a lot of help in this early game. You know, this Viego is going to be at the mercy of the Wukong Ahri in terms of that early push. So it's one of those now where we're going to get to see whether or not that player issue is still going to come into fruition, or whether or not they can stall out, whether they can stay in contention long enough to get themselves to that mid-late game state where their composition starts to essentially be able to carry its own weight.
Yeah, and just go forward and hit people.
Yeah. Please run it. Please run it, Swain. Swain is very. He doesn't like it. He promises it's okay. It's like you're definitely not gifting me a present for Christmas over here in July. It's a nice opportunity for him, but at the very least, you have to get there, right? You have to get to the 1 to 2 item mark where all these champions come online, right? Because Swain gets that Rylai's plus whichever mythic he decides. You get Ezreal with the potential Essence Reaver build that we've seen, in the last game. You get Ornn, who starts to be able to upgrade people around that sort of timing onwards, right? It's that moment where your carries start to get a bit tankier, start to get able to hit a little bit harder. So in the same way, we need to see Kassin start to move towards potentially looking for some of these ganks. Has done a bit more of a slow clear to start with, but moving towards that top side, maybe this time round we'll be able to find that gank on the bottom side.
I mean, potentially that's one of the things that we have praised Kassin for, is a lot of his early game proactivity has seemed a bit more considered, a bit less wild, which is growth for a guy, because he's been in the LGL for a little bit of time now and has been on the periphery of the top tier junglers, but because of those inconsistency issues, I don't think anyone's really ever justified putting him that high up. It's been a positive start to this split from him. Let's hope that he can continue it on as we get later and later on.
Yeah, and on the subject of these positive starts, both of these mid laners teleporting back into the mid lane. Slight advantage here going over to Kaito as you could try to turn that around.
Yeah, just walking through, the sort of thing that you can do with Viego, just a little bit of a drive-by gank, secure a little bit of pressure, as Yujio has been getting shoved in for the majority of this laning phase. Unica searching for chicken, but can't find any.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no KFC nearby. Just going to have to go and settle for French Frog this time around. And I'm not talking about the Tahm Kench. Going to move over to that Grump, happily clear up towards that top side. And it is a little bit more of a passive early game. This, honestly, is more beneficial to V3. It's one of those rare games where they have picked themselves enough skin that they could just chill it out, as Kassin going to happily start up something a bit more exotic than the Frog, as that Dragon going to be potentially secured here for CGA.
Yeah, a reset came through from Dresscode and Hetel. Unica just chilling in his own jungle, nowhere to contest this one, and I mean these Ocean Drakes in the early game, a little bit of healing can be quite important in these laning phases. just briefly glancing at the scoreboard, we are seeing in the top side, why should I actually take a bit of command of this matchup versus the Olaf, who is really meant to be a pick that can snowball in the early stages.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit inflated because I think the wave is slow pushing in, so Nep should get a decent amount. Yeah, as you see, should be able to get some of that back, but absolutely is in control, is advantaged here, and I think that's really showing us of Voshidai as a player, right? Because we haven't seen this tanky style, but being able to still control the wave properly, still be up in CS, still be solid in the matchup on something that might not necessarily be their traditional style, but is still a pick for the team that is beneficial, was required, in fact, potentially, for them to have such a stable early game. It's really showing, I think, some flexibility as a player that we haven't seen as much of over the past couple seasons.
And I mean, it is difficult to have that flexibility when you are on a roster that fundamentally isn't winning games. But if you can find more ways to draft, if you can find more angles to play out these games, then your chance of winning increases, because being able to do more things is never a bad thing in terms of League of Legends. It's been a pretty quiet early game as we hit that 7-minute mark. Just the Drake going over to CGA. Herald spawning in 30 seconds time, and with this bot lane priority, V3 may be looking to reset and head towards Shelly.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Would like to see them secure that one and start to take that tempo, because if there's one thing V3 does actually do quite well, it's their early game. They're able to get advantages. They're able to find themselves a decent amount of advantage, but bot lane.
Yeah, dress code already forced to arcane shift away. The knock-up secured by Hetel onto Demo, who has actually been ignited himself. Takes a tongue lash to the face, but it's CGA making the aggressive play and burning that AD carry flash.
Yeah, and it's that level 6 mark as well here for Hybrid that potentially was scary for the side. Dress code had to flash away to make sure you're not in range to potentially get engaged on, which would have been quite disastrous, honestly. Instead, it's just going to be sort of the trade of summoners there, but that flash obviously going down too does make it advantage over for CGA.
As we see
Oh,
charm
no.
landing from Kaito there. Kassin up in the top side is going to be able to secure the knock-up onto Washidai, and the Ornn is dead. First blood to the Monkey King in the jungle, and look at this, Kaito being a lovely mid laner, keeping that Rift Herald leashed.
See, actually, that was tactical, and I can explain why.
Yeah.
Because if they do win this game, Washidai will have to play more on. So this way you guarantee you get that Camille back. So it's like, oh guys, sorry, it didn't work. I'd like to go back to I was playing so well on the Camille. I think it makes sense. That's what
Makes sense.
No, but in all seriousness, it's a bit of a shame there to end up going down to that one. It was somewhat telegraphed, but it's one of those where as soon as Nat presses that ghost, if he hits that axe, you're just getting run down, and there's not much that can be done. Combine that with this Cyclone, and as you can see, because in nearby, Washington just trying to push that in, trying to get that crash, and then Olaf's off to the races. And unfortunately, even if you flash at this point, the flash follow, all of the slows in the world that come from the Olaf's Q, and it's just going to be an easy pick up there for Kassin.
It's part of the reason why he has seen this resurgence in top lane. Obviously, that mini rework gave him a buff on his W and a little bit more armor penetration on his Q. But fundamentally, Olaf loves long lanes, keeps throwing out those undertows, can chase you down, can take you out. Not the most explosive early game for CGA, but a kill on Kassin is definitely going to be appreciated. And the bot lane is starting to feel a little bit more in favor of Hybrid and Nemra as well.
Yeah, it definitely is. After that first initial play, you've got to show that little bit of extra respect. You do now have access, obviously, to that more defensive tool within the Tahm Kench's Devour. However, in exchange, you get the Solar Flare up, so it's a bit of a tit-for-tat kind of situation. It's going to make the lane pretty consistent as it was before, because you still have to space accordingly around the Solar Flare before you do anything. What is interesting, though, is looking at the mid lane, too, because there is that advantage being built up here for Yu-Gi-Oh! And this Swain, with that Imperial Mandate already finished, is quite ahead of the curve of what you would normally expect from a mid laner because of how cheap that item is. As soon as you get that Rylai's as well, this Swain will start to be a bit of a monster.
Yeah, and getting towards that sort of like 2-item spike, I mean, something that we traditionally see from a champion like Ezreal, right? He has his itemization just being a little bit cheaper, and that means that in the long run, you can suffer a little bit, but that 2-item core is just way too powerful for anyone to handle. Kaito nearly caught out with the Never move in the mid lane, just gets out.
Yeah, it's good to just play a little bit safe there for Kaito. Doesn't really need to force anything just yet.
Oh, no.
However, topside.
Oh no, Nab landed an undertow, and you know what that means? Washidai's going to be going down. No flash available. The axes keep hitting the reckless swing. One more throw, but it doesn't come through
No
in
mana.
time.
There's
Washidai
no
just stays
mana.
alive.
Nap barely doesn't have the mana to throw the last undertow to get that kill on board. It is still going to be the Herald drop, so it's not the worst thing ever. But it's really unfortunate there for Nap. Was looking for that solo. And luckily for Vashidai does end up getting out alive, but going to lose their tower as a sort of byproduct.
Yeah, response coming through on the bot side. Unica picking up that mountain trek. That's going to be nice, but this Herald will secure a second charge on that top lane tower. And if Nap and Kasin can take this one down, that's a lot of gold funneled into this Wukong and Olaf already.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to take it just yet, but I actually think that this dragon is kind of massive in its own way, being secured by V3. Having said that,
engage as in dives Hetel. Can't quite dodge out from the ultimate there, and I think Hybrid might just be dead. He can ult back in time though. Somehow, CJ's bot lane do not go down.
yeah, but at the very least they're going to be poked very, very low off the back of this one, and you have to feel the dive might come through. Here comes Viego. Unica looking for this one, potentially.
Still has flash, but Hybrid and Nem are backing away just in time.
Yeah, Kaito's there too. Potentially could look to roam down and collapse on this one. Teleport used mid as well by Yu-Gi-Oh, so they won't have their mid laner support on this one. So I just feel like CGA, they've managed to defend it just well enough, and V3 will have to bail out.
And the crazy thing is, Hybrid has still got his flash. They actually won the summoner spell trade off of that play, which it kind of speaks volumes about how good Hybrid is as a player, but a little bit of that over-aggressive laning that we talked about earlier, maybe an angle for V3 if they can find another fight like that.
And when health bars go that low, you have to think, was there a potential angle there for V3 to find a little bit more damage? Maybe that was a kill there that was just slightly missed. I would have to look back to be sure, but it definitely looked like there was a possibility. Either way, though, V3's bot lane showing some signs of life, and it's something we weren't expecting in this matchup. We were expecting defensive, passive, careful. We're like, oh, Hybrid and Nemo, they're the better of the two bot lanes. So these guys are going to have to play back. But Dresscode and Hetel, they're showing that they're here to play. They're here to fight. And they've done something really positive here within their matchup.
Maybe some danger here for Washida on the top side of the map as, well, pretty much everyone from CGA, apart from Hybrid, was in that top side quadrant. Kasin just shadowing his top lane and making sure that if Unica were to go to a play, it would be a 2v2 that I think CGA win at this point in the game. Power just going to be charged down now as Kasin is knocked into the air. The ultimate is going to be used by Nap as they are looking for the 1v2. Gore Drinker, so much damage from Kasin as Kaito joins the fray and Nap secures the kill.
I was not expecting that play. I won't lie to you. I thought that looked really grief, but it didn't matter. CGA, they just have more than enough damage. They have the item difference, and
Hybrid,
that's all it takes.
yeah, isolated in this 1v1 against the Ezreal. This is exactly where Hybrid wants to be on this Kai. So he's got the Kraken Slayer completed. Just the components of dress code, and if a Void Seeker lands, you know that he's diving in with that killer instinct.
Yeah, but on the subject of a killer instinct, look towards this top side, because CGA, they know their damage, they know what they've got, and they've got themselves the tower just happily whacking away at it. It looks a bit strange to start with, but as soon as that one falls, they happily take the fight, and it just is so much damage. I mean, Unica's getting deleted by the Wukong, and happily will Kaito show up and get a little bit of assist money as Nap even further ahead now. 1-0-1 on that one, up 30 CS. It's looking nice for the Olaf.
Yeah, and he's one of the few champions that can actually get into the backline of V3, stand on top of this Swain, and absolutely just chill there. Look at that, 2,000 gold lead on Washidai. Obviously, the Yorn is going to have a lot of utility in these team fights, but I think the space that Nap can buy is also going to be crucial.
Yeah, and if there's one champion that can snowball out of control, it is the Olaf, right? If you fall behind to an Olaf, you don't get to say, don't worry guys, we'll just CC him from range and burst him down. Because my man just goes, nope, I'm going to blow straight through that, straight through your health bar and straight through any sort of gold advantage the other team has. So Nap could potentially just take over this one. And it was the X factor. We spoke about it earlier in terms of the fact that this V3 comp, it's great. It's not a bad composition as you get to the mid to late game. But if Olaf gets ahead, or if Wukong gets ahead, or if Ahri gets ahead, all of these champions with so much snowball potential, it's kind of hard to put the brakes on.
Yeah, and especially at this point in the game when you are starting to see that those mythics completed. Everfrost now for Kaito, so a little bit of extra lockdown. Kasin with that Divine Sunderer 2, which synergizes so well with Wukong's kit. I think CGA are in a real point of power now, and with the Drake spawning in 40 seconds, they may have an opportunity to use that strength. As in the mid lane, Yu-Gi-Oh caught out here, will be charmed, but instantly goes into the ultimate. CJ just burning that cooldown before this next fight.
Yeah, that might be a crucial cooldown to blow, right? This is your main zone control threat. If you are a member of V3, potentially now might have to give this, but this is where that dragon from earlier comes into play. You have bought yourself 5 minutes on the timer by giving that dragon as a CGA fan. So V3, they bought themselves time earlier. Will they be able to secure this one, or should they just give it up? I think, in my opinion, I would go for the second, especially with the Nap moving down to try something.
Yeah, there's a never move will connect, but not blowing the Ragnarok prematurely. Rift Herald not quite going to be able to take down this mid lane tower, but should be enough to secure CGA lane priority and get them a rotate towards that dragon.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, at this point, it's best if you just send Washidai towards that top lane, get that wave sorted out, because otherwise you're going to get frozen on by Nap and just get run down again. So try and fix that one as the Ornn, otherwise it's going to be really rough. And CJ, they do get themselves that dragon. Not exactly the best state in the world, but they are still up 3,000 to 4,000 gold. And honestly, looking at where that gold is, it's crucially across the board onto the carries. It's onto Hybrid, it's onto Nap, exactly where you want it to be.
Brilliant stuff from CJ. The early game not quite as explosive as it has been in the past, but they're still able to secure priority, still able to secure some of these leads. And this is where the game starts to become pretty difficult for V3, because these first sort of 15-20 minutes where we've seen them really step up, it's their mid-late game shot calling that has left a lot to be desired. I'm wondering how much CJ can exploit that to push the advantage that they've already achieved.
But the real question to me is, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
What does weight loss and this game have in common?
I don't know.
They both involve the importance of scaling. And if there's anything that matters in this game, you have to wonder whether or not V3 would be able to find that point in the game, right? Because they do have these items starting to come online. They've got 1 across the board, coming up to 2 now. That is where they hit the break point in this matchup, because the Ahri, realistically, on the flip side, she's not going to provide a lot after she gets that second item. It's going to be a lot more utility, not as much damage. Same with this Olaf, same with this Wukong. 2 to 3 items is where the game starts to flip-flop in the other direction, as Unica might be getting flip-flopped on.
Yeah, that Cloud Rift means that Kassin can move a hell of a lot faster. Already taken the Viego to 30% HP with the Cyclone, but V3 maybe looking for another part of the fight. Kaito going forward, does land the charm, but beautifully dashed away from it by Washidai. That's a teleport used by CGA. Nothing else much gained.
Yeah, nothing much gained on that one, but it is still going to be that disengage. And again, if you're the defensive team, disengaging is fine. You don't need to force anything here. The question for me is, how are you going to defend this Baron buff? Because that could be terrifying. A minute left on that one, and CGA, they are in a position where they can realistically just start it up, turn with the Solar Flare, and look for a team fight. They have the members, they have the strength to do so.
Well,
and realistically, you need...
Naps on a flank, V3 are diving, but they may be getting collapsed on. Hybrid is already dead. That is a big damage source off the table, but Nap can continue to go forward with these unders. It's actually going to back off as a Yu-Gi-Oh goes into the stopwatch, and that's a free pick for V3.
I mean, the work from Swain. What is Washidai?
Washidai? What?
What? Okay. So did you put...
How did he get there? What?
Did you put in a PayPal request as well? I thought that was just me.
I may have done.
Oh no.
Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, okay? I've had issues with PayPal recently. Paying out, so it might not be hitting his account, but that was still a little bit weird.
Man, my man, he really wants a Camille game, huh? Okay, so Washidai, it's a great pull originally here from Yu-Gi-Oh. The burst onto Hybrid just catches everyone off guard, I think. There's not much you can do when the Swain jumps in, and it looks really rough to begin with, but look at the amount that Swain is doing here. The zone control, no one wants to be inside that, and then Washidai just loses his mind. It's like, yep, I'm going to just walk to the tower. Let's get him, boys. We have a minion wave. Ha-ha!
Yeah, that's not great.
He just wanted to take a quick look at the structure. As an architect, or needs to know more about the building processes. I've never seen anything quite like the turrets in League in real life, so it's understandable.
They are very impressive. I'm not sure what the mechanism actually is for them to like deal damage.
I don't know, but I imagine you have to. There's some sort of targeting, some sort of like laser guided system. I imagine, but either way, you need to get an up close and personal check. So it makes sense. I think that the Washidai would need to double check that for more reasons.
I mean, what he's done is just confirm that those turrets do actually do damage. Because oftentimes on Ornn, it can feel like they don't.
Thank you, durability update for. We just need to check afterwards, make sure that the.
Oh, brilliant stuff. I feel like we've riffed on Washidai enough. I feel like the guy's doing his best. Okay, let's leave him at that.
It is a first tank game, to be fair. My guy, he's trying his best, and on somebody who's trying their best, Yuji's got those 2 items online, so Swain is starting to hurt. It didn't look so much so in the last fight, but the amount of zone control, the amount of damage you can now set up thanks to this combination, you're going to be applying the marks to everyone. It's an AoE essential setup for bonus damage for everyone across the rift, and if a Viego is ever being given more damage, they're pretty happy normally.
Yeah, and especially when you combine that with dress codes and mirror mana, which is literally just completed. These 2 item spikes coming in at the perfect timing for the V3 members, but hold the phone. Kaito kind of just going on a one-man mission towards this top side. Nema has been caught out and is going to be forced to flash away the Eclipse, buying some tankiness. The Solar Flare not brilliant, though, and a couple more shots from Dress Code would take him out. Before all of the Forge Shot is used, that's a lot invested to take out Nema, but he does fall down. Meanwhile, though, Kaido just hitting onto this inhib tower, and we're starting to see some resets come through from V3, but this might free up the position for CGA to actually contest this Drake.
Yeah, the problem here as well is that Yu-Gi-Oh is the one resetting, but the teleport isn't quite available. It'll be coming up very soon. But if Kaito now walks back teleports, you have that opportunity to just contest this dragon as a potential 4v5. On top of that, there was the tower falling, which could be crucial, as well as the steal, maybe.
Kassin just stuck in the pit is going to be able to clone himself over.
Can I just say?
Yeah.
Great work, V3, for actually stopping the objective. They don't normally do this. They actually thought about it properly. They controlled the dragon at a reasonable timing, and they didn't just rush the ending result.
Well,
this is an issue.
They saw what happened to Axis in game 1 against them.
They witnessed it firsthand.
Yeah. If you're able to get 2 steals, I think that really just emphasizes how demoralizing that could be for the opponent, and making sure that doesn't come through. Good progression.
Signs of growth, and that's something that we can appreciate.
Oh no, Hetel potentially caught out here is going to be able to flash out on that Tahm Kench. Actually a big summoner spell burn, because it means that you can't go for these flash devour plays if someone is getting low and they're just outside of your ult range. Yeah,
absolutely. It is one of those now where it's kind of similar to Thresh Flash in regards to the fact that it's not actually your flash you're blowing. You're blowing another defensive carry flash. Yeah. Because obviously Lantern repositioning is similar in that defensive nature as Devour would be. So it's one of those where it does definitely matter. The question for me is whether or not we can now find that same engage that will catch onto this Ezreal, who does have the shift and the flash available. It's still a difficult task. It's just much easier now without that flash on the spot.
And I mean, especially when you've got Nap, who does have that ghost and that death dance now completed, is going to be able to run through these fights pretty consistently, and you're not going to be killing this Olaf for a damn while. I imagine as soon as he gets on top of dress code, even if you burn the flash, even if you burn the arcane shift, those undertows can be so relentless in the pressure they apply. CGA securing a little bit of vision around Baron. 24 minutes on the clock. You've got a couple items on your Kai'Sa. Maybe you can look to start this one up, but I think you need to secure a pick first.
Yeah, absolutely, but they have the tools to do it. They've got that solar flare up. You could just use the dash.
Yeah, there comes the solar flare. There goes the Heartbreaker Strikers. Kaito dashing forward. Yu-Gi-Oh going to be forced to walk away. Nappa's already ghosted. He's going to be joining this fight. He wants to get into the fray. Double knock-up from Kassin as dress code forced to arcane shift away, and Hetel is already dead. Unica is now going to be the focus on Nappa's. Yu-Gi-Oh trying to buy as much time as he can in the front line.
Look at the
healing up a storm on the Swain. CJ can't damage him. Is going to be able to secure that kill. Finally goes down. As there goes Nema, a double kill for the Swain. A Yu-Gi-Oh is massive.
Oh, he absolutely is. And I mean, come on, just look at the amount of zone control that Yu-Gi-Oh is providing. We were discussing how the Swain can do so much work, and this is exactly why. When you look at what the opposition was trying to do, Swain is just standing in 5 people's faces saying, no, you don't get to hit my backline. You don't get to do anything here. Goodbye. Go away. 2 of you die. Baron's going to get started. Doesn't matter. We'll just take the kills. We're scaling into this one. And on the subject of the scaling, it was a little bit scary, the initial start. Unica does go for that aggressive dash. You still have the Devour available, of course. Does get out of that one. And now all of my eyes are just on Yu-Gi-Oh. Does pop the ulti very, very soon. And it looks good to start with. You know, Nap finding that access. A little bit of engage onto dress code, but the flash away is enough. And now look at Swain, just in the middle of absolutely everyone. And no one can kill him. This is just the tankiness, the healing, the lifesteal coming through from this one. The Omni Vamp is huge in Yu-Gi-Oh. The damage doesn't look crazy, but it all adds up over time, and it's going to be plenty to get 2 kills.
I think we might be seeing some Oblivion Orbs or some Executioner's Callings coming through. Yep, there we are, Kaito.
2 of them.
Yep, there, and we got the Executioner's Calling from Nap. Swain is a problem, and it's a problem that CGA are going to have to face head-on if they want to win this game. V3, still 5k down, but as that last team fight proves, they are hardly out of this game.
Yeah, and crucially, that Zhonya's now coming through as well. Now going to have even more stalling potential, more zone control, more time being bought, and for the side of CGA, they need to find the assassinations, the one-shots onto the backline, and then they play the fights afterwards. Then they can deal with Yu-Gi-Oh! If Yu-Gi-Oh! Is standing in front of them and the rest of the team, just in the middle of everyone, there's not a lot that can be done to him. The tankiness is just too much, as well as that application of this Imperial Mandate to proc even more damage for the rest of the side. It's buffing everyone up, and just the sheer potential for this Swain to not care cannot be understated.
But the thing about one-shotting those backline carries is, with that Glacial Shroud in inventory, that would imply the Frozen Heart for dress code, which means once Nap, once Hybrid do get to that backline, they're going to have a much harder time actually taking out that Ezreal. Very important to keep your eye on that.
Yeah, and the fun thing about Ezreal as well is that you can itemize these things and it still works very effectively for them. It's one of the few AD carries that can afford to itemize defensively and not really lose out too much in terms of their actual output because you have so much potential. CGA, they are feeling pressure from this one. They feel like they've got to rush this one. There is no vision on it, no pings yet. There's no way they're going to get away with it because the Swain W will spot them out, but here comes V3.
Going to come through there, Unica. He's stolen Barons before. Yujo will get chummed up, the full engage going onto the Swain, but that Zonya's to buy some time. And now CJ's health bars are in shambles! Unica secures the first kill of the fight. His Hybrid is trying to kite away on the other side, but the Swain is just too monstrous. CJ have no way of dealing with V3.
Oh, can you say draft diff, my friend? Yu-Gi-Oh! Is buying so much time that the clock is being broken against the side of CGA's heads. It's shattering the matches. It's shattering their thoughts, and they can't have any chance of winning this one, honestly. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is stalling so effectively. It's ridiculous. The stopwatch, or rather the Zhonya, is buying so much time. Beautiful evasion on this Solar Flower, which we'll get to see on this one coming back. They spot it, they slowly but surely move up. It's a nice initial attempt, but the CC chain isn't there. Honestly, from there, the multi-man on-engage afterwards is just too much to follow up with. It's not the one-man show, but it's plenty being done by the members of V3.
Great stuff. Lovely to see them operating as a team, operating as a unit. So often they've had these struggles as CGA. We spoke about them sparking of desperation, starting up that Baron. Fishing for Washidai. They can see the Baron empowered minions. They know that someone is here. It's going to be a damn tough task to take down that Ornn.
I'm worried because I'm starting to get the hopium. I'm starting to believe in V3, and that scares me greatly because they're still down 3k, which you wouldn't believe given the way that these last couple of fights have been going.
Yeah,
I'm starting to hope, maybe Coin Flip Gaming, Arcadia is going to be the ones to give this opportunity over, but it's at the very least this Baron buff is now going to be used to get a little bit of influx here for V3. They can get these outer towers. I don't expect them to get any inhibs or anything off of it, but if they can start to get the gold back, generate a little bit more of these structures off of that local standing gold, they are going to be in a really good spot here moving forwards, especially with that frozen heart being completed now for Yu-Gi-Oh! And for dress code.
Yeah, you just stand there. And CJ can't kill you.
I love the fact that this team has just done a complete 180 on their identity. It's like, Vashide, you are the big carry player. No, I play Ornn. Yu-Gi-Oh! Play these like dive-based champ. No, I'm be Swain. I'm just going to stand. I don't need damage. I'm just going to sort of be utility. Dress code, be dress code. No, I'm just going to carry the game. Like, they're doing so much they don't normally do. It's crazy.
I like the idea. It's like dress code be dress code. No, I'm gonna carry.
I'm gonna be good. My bad. We're just gonna.
But I mean.
No. But credit to him, right? This bot lane has performed really well when we thought they wouldn't necessarily be able to match up. I don't think that's an overstatement to say. I mean, Dresscode and Hatel has done a fantastic job, honestly, of playing this matchup defensively, but also being able to gain advantages of their own.
It's been great stuff so far, and the question that every V3 fan will have right now is how do they throw? Up? Yeah. How do we throw?
Oh, I mean, the only way that you throw is just Yuchio forgets how to press Zhonya's and just gets one shot. If that happens, the game is playable from there, but it's so hard to do anything because of this Swain, and it's only going to get worse, remember, because you've got the ornaments coming through. That's come through now for the Imperial Mandate. It's come through for this Divine Sundra. You've already got them almost across the board. And the comp is still getting stronger, Kassin.
Oh, steals away the red buff. Might be dying for it, though. Actually,
A hybrid?
get himself away. Hybrid, though. Not quite knocked up with the ultimate from Ornn there.
It was genuinely so close to disaster for a red buff there for CGA, which is surprisingly not something I feel like I've
Yeah, I mean, we nearly
Said
saw
much of.
Kassin there.
Yeah, it was close. Kassin's there for the red buff, but gets away with it, luckily. However, so I was about to say the gold lead has shifted quite considerably. There you go. It's starting to drop off a cliff, kind of like CGA's comp. But remember, they do still have options. You still have the potential of the solar flare engage. You still have Kaito on this Ari with the charm, as well as Nap being able to sprint through. It's still hard to kill this Olaf. On top of that, the top lane is still a problem because of look at the tower. It's already gone. You've got that inhib exposed. If one fight goes wrong here for V3, you could just march down top lane and end the game. We are at the point where those death timers are starting to get long enough for that situation. So even though it feels really nice for them, you've still got to be careful. You've still got to be sure. You still have to be smart about how you play it, because one mistake and you could just repeat game one.
Level 18 now for a UGO.
Yeah.
This Swain is...
He's a big boy.
Very quickly going to be the strongest that he's ever going to be. And, I mean, that's a small solace for CGA as stacking 4 members in this bot lane. They really want to catch out UGO, but they're not going to overstep. They're not going to overshove this wave. And with Cloud Soul spawning in 20 seconds, that's an objective that CGA are going to be happy to pick up.
I mean, the crazy thing is, though, is that if V3 is able to contest this one, it's so good for their champions, too. It's fantastic for both teams, honestly. That movement speed sounds like nothing, but Olaf with extra movement speed, Leona to close the gap for the solar flare, Wukong, obviously, for the same reasons with the Cyclone. There's so many options.
Goes in, Cyclone onto Washidai, the solar flare used as well, but it doesn't quite chain the CC. It's a lot of tools spent trying to kill the Ornn, and now you're on the wrong side of the map, and V3 are collapsing.
Horn available. They could call the battle lines.
Instead, they'll just focus down this Drake for now and then potentially look for CGA afterward. There it goes. The Ornn Horn has been called. And Hybrid picks up the phone, dodges away from the engage by Hatel, but still gets jumped onto and one shot. Eugeo once again in the front line where he's been this entire game. Takes out Nema. This game is looking done for CGA.
Can someone say 100% probability, by the way? It's looking pretty nice here for V3. They finally got themselves the gold lead back into this one, and so much was blown. Fair play here for Washide surviving in that top side, because the initial play here, towards that bottom side was the 3 ultis blown, the solar flare used up, the killer instinct, the cyclone. They didn't find the engage properly. The flash is blown in exchange, and now you can turn it around. The members start to show up. They don't go too early. They get themselves the dragon first, but they guarantee themselves a solid team fight off of a beautiful engage here from the top lane tank.
TPs are still available for CGA. Now
no,
on the bot side, Hybrid when he respawns.
No steal, please. I don't want to see it. Don't do this, Kassin. Stay away.
We've had today. Kaito going in.
Yujo, get him.
Trying to dance around on this Ari. Doesn't really have the damage. Kassin flashing in, going for the steal. No way! No way! Kassin, you absolute monster! A Nap in the pit, dealing the damage, not going down. V3, it looks so good, but you can never count out Crest. Gaming, Actiujo goes down!
And they might just end the game from there. Look at the top wave. It's not pushed up. We've discussed it earlier. They have the Baron buff too. It might just be all over. V3, you had it. You had the game in the palms of your hands and you throw it like it's a basketball.
Oh, my goodness gracious me. The death time is significant. The big one, Eugeo. 40 seconds until the Swain is back on the Rift. Dresscode will do his damnedest, throwing out the Mystic Shot, throwing out the ultimate, but CGA, they recognise that this is the time to go.
They've got Hatellas up. Unica in 10. It might be enough. They're going to have the Ornhorn potentially come through, but you've got to make a big dispense here as the 2.
There's so much damage on Hybrid right now. Nap is going forward. Dress code forced to arcade shift away. The Nexus is exposed. And somehow CGA take victory from the jaws of defeat. And V3 still without a win.
Why? Why? Why can't we have nice things in this life?
Break now. Break now.
I can't. I'm sorry.
I can't. We'll see you in a few minutes. That was... Oh.
We are back, and I'm your new host. J-Real has left with V3's chances of picking up a win this season. I am your new host, Jay Fake, and I'll be taking you through the final segments of today. A beautiful cast there from Middlecourt and Recollect V3. Well, we all saw the game. Coming up short, couldn't close out the game. very good situation, but CGA picking up another win now. They're going to continue their plays up through the rankings. Miracle, you have to be pretty happy with CGA picking up the win there.
Honestly, man, I wish I was. And I'm going to go a bit raw here, but CGA didn't deserve to win that game. I think that the way that they played the early game was not great. They didn't show the proactivity that they needed. The composition really didn't work well into the Swain, and V3, they did everything right until the last 30 seconds of the game. And just on a personal note, like my heart goes out to everyone on V3 at the moment. Because it's bad enough having your O21 split in spring, but you come in summer, you've shown some improvement. You're a much better team now than you ever were in spring. And the fact that these victories, first against Axis, now against CJ, just slip out of their hands, heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's definitely rough for V3 fans, and it was close. I will say there has to be some level of hope, because like aside all the memes, aside all the hopium, as you said, V3 are looking better. They are looking more competitive. They are definitely making plays and potentially closing in on those victories. Do I think they're going to go 0-42? Probably not, because I do think that they are actually showing some promise, and there are moments where they can look like they can pick up some wins. So, with that though, CGA, a little bit of a rocky one from them. I feel like all in all, it's a bit of an interesting takeaway. I think that V3 definitely had some interesting moments and some actually unique opportunities as well. I think that the Swain pick is something we have to talk about. I think it was so good. Recollect, what do you make about this one? I think it's the first in the region.
So the Swain pick is something that has been showing a lot of prominence in general for its ability to have such a low itemization cost and so much effectiveness, obviously, with the AoE zone control it can provide, as well as, obviously, the amount of damage it can less do itself, but more output for the rest of the team. It helps to make everything around it better. And given the fact that the other comp was so hard pressed to actually get onto any of the backline, it made a lot of sense. And I think, honestly, credit to Yu-Gi-Oh! Because not only was the pick good, the way that they played it was solid. There was very little issues, I think, in the way. It was that confidence as well to just sprint past the rest of the team and understand that was their job, which a lot of mid laners are essentially trained not to do because they play these control mages. Stand at the back, deal damage, be safe. Swain can't do that. You have to be willing to dive into the backline and play with some aggression. And in a way, I wouldn't actually be surprised to see Jet play Swain one day. I think that would weirdly be a strange, but it would work. I feel like as a pick, it was fantastic. I think, honestly, in general, V3 did everything right in the pick ban. They got themselves into the right spot. It's just one of those where it's that it's the one warning, right? It's like, do you have to push top wave before you do anything, or if you mess up, you'll lose the game? And they messed up once, and they didn't prepare just in case. And ironically, the one time they didn't prepare, they lost the whole game for it, just like the last time.
Yeah, and it does happen, and obviously commiserations for all V3 fans and players and anyone involved in the team, because you're close. You're very, 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 very close.
Yeah.
A little bit more, and you make it, and we are hoping that will be seen soon in this game. But CJ getting through with another win, as you said, not the greatest performance from them, but a win is still a win. They still have some moments where they did look strong, and I think a lot of that was on the draft as well. But we're going to move on to go for the recap for the rest of this game. Obviously, today's games have been pretty exciting. I was going to call it day V3 if they had picked up the win, but alas, it is not going to be V3's day. But day 3 definitely came with some interesting and unexpected moments, I would say. I think that there's been a lot of shocks coming out, and a lot of teams outperforming what we would have expected. Okay, so obviously Burning Core versus Russell Justice this morning. Did anyone really expect Burning Core to win that one? I feel like they really showed up and put on a good performance. And Middlecore, are you feeling like Burning Core are getting close to maybe their peaks that they had in the spring split?
It's so difficult to tell, especially with these this early into the split and with the changes that have happened in the bot lane. I think the one thing that we can take away is that he is better on AD carry than he is on support. And if this loser guy keeps playing the way that he has been, with this confidence, with this aggression, I think that fits very well into the style of game that Burning Core like to play. It's very fast-paced, it's very aggressive. Sometimes you're overdiving, but the skill of these players, like Flawless, Dyson, Ray Farkey, is oftentimes enough to make it work.
Yeah, indeed. And then moving on to the game 2, we had DFM taking on Axis. A game that most would have said would have been a simple game, but recollect, it was actually much closer than people thought. Axis really putting up a bit of a fight.
Yeah, I mean, Axis really did an incredible job, I think, of taking control in those sort of early stages. There were obviously always some issues that you were worried about, specifically the Evi factor, which can always just flip a game on its head. And in fact, there were solo kills damned in that top side, and the Sejuani started to fall apart. And just like with all good things, eventually it's got to come to an end. And around 15 minutes, the game just started to fall away.
Yeah, and then keeping on form of close games when not necessarily expected. The Hawks versus Sengoku, much closer than anticipated. I feel like most people would have said, you know what, Sengoku, they're in form, they're looking really strong. The Hawks still question marking a little bit, but Middlecourt, I think they put up a really good performance once again. Obviously, Sengoku coming away with the win, but Hawks definitely can hold their head high.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a team that we had a lot of expectations for coming into the start of the year, and it finally feels like that's coming to fruition. They're 1-2 at the moment, and the game versus Sengoku, whilst it was a loss, showcased some of the good moments that we are seeing out of this team. I wouldn't be surprised that once the second round robin hits, we are looking at Hawks as one of those teams that is right at the top of the table.
Yeah, and then to finish it all off, it was V3 versus CGA. Again, another nail-biter, another close game. V3 just slightly not making it. CGA keeping on to another win. But I think all around the league, I think this has been a close set of games. And you know what? I'm really excited to see it. I'm really happy to see that teams are actually getting competitive. They're actually pushing each other and they're really starting to scrap it out. It's no longer feeling like we have those big separation brackets. And actually, some of these teams really can contest and can play. And I think for the league as a whole, it's just really positive to see. Now, as I said, I am Jay Fake. I got the memo from Jay Real that he likes to do a little bit of a game every single time that he is on the hosting desk, and we are going to do that once again. It's called Mess or Impress. Basically, I'm going to ask the casters who their best player or team was today. That will be their Impress, and obviously who they think didn't perform as good as they could have. It can, again, be a team or a player, and that will be their Mess. And I'm going to start with you, Middlecourt, because you have played this game a few times. Who was your Mess today, and then tell me who was your Impress.
I think in terms of my mess, it has to be Rascal Jester. Possibly a little bit surprising, but going down to Burning Core isn't something that this team should be doing, and I think generally they've not been looking as strong. I've got positive things to say about pretty much every team in the LJL at the moment because we are seeing some of those good things, but I've got higher expectations for Rascal Jester, and right now they just aren't matching them.
Yeah, and then who would you say is your Impress for today?
Oh man, that's a difficult one. Can I just say the LJL in general? We've had some really
Why not?
We've had really entertaining games. Loads of teams have actually stepped up their level. Maybe the ceiling has come down a little bit on the region, but if it means that we're getting more competitive games, if we're getting more excitement like we saw in pretty much most of the games that we had today, I'm all for it.
For you, recollect a similar question. Who was your Mess? Who was your Impress?
So I'm going to go for a really controversial one. Which is going to get me in trouble, undoubtedly. But I actually think that Burning Core had a lot of issues in their match outside of the very ending. So for me, I'm actually going to go with Burning Core specifically. I'd go for Ray Farkey, actually, who ironically was the MVP on the main broadcast. So that really shows what I'm saying. I think there was a lot of issues with the way that the matchup was piloted. I think that there were moments for a lot of solo kill opportunities that weren't taken, which I've discussed a little bit with some other people as well. So I think that was the mess. As far as the Impress, I think V3, honestly. Like I know that they ended up losing, but specifically the V3 coaching staff with their drafting, great stuff, guys. Genuinely good. I'm proud of you for being willing to try new things that the region hasn't done. The biggest weakness of the LJL is that everyone is so rigid in the champs that they play, and I think that that's something that needs to be looked at, that could potentially be exploited moving forwards. And this, I think, was a great showing of that actually happening. There wasn't a lot that could be done because no one was willing to play against the Swain in ways that they knew how to. So I like the fact that we're finding new punishers. It's not perfect, but this is a hell of a lot better than I think people were expecting this team to be.
Yeah, and I will say my Mess, I think Well, I'm kind of torn. Maybe a little bit of CGA, maybe a little bit of Ross. Just I think they both kind of underperformed what I expected. I don't think they played badly per se. It was just lower than expected, and that's why they're going to get my mess vote. But for Impress, I have to give it to Yu-Gi-Oh! I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Played so well on the Swain, and genuinely, I want to see more of that Swain. I think it really was good, and I think that it gave some life to V3, so that's who I'm going to give my Impress to. But that is going to be the end of the day today. Thank you very much to everyone that came in, tuned in. Obviously, shout out to every team on the LJL because they made such a good game day. And obviously, shout out to you, RMC, who's not on the broadcast. Shout out to Middlecott. Shout out to Recollected as well for coming through with some beautiful casting today. And obviously, shout out Dan from Discord Production on point as always. We could not do it without you. But that is going to be it from us today. We will be back on Friday, 10 a.m. My brother Jay Real will be back. But that is all from me. Have a good day.